Emotional scenes in Brisbane last night as more than 1,000 family, friends and strangers came together to pay tribute and remember Hannah Clark and her 3 children who were murdered by her estranged husband, Rowan Baxter. It comes as pressure grows for men's rights advocate Bettina Arndt to be stripped of her Order of Australia award for her support of a Queensland police officer who said Baxter may have been driven too far. To discuss this, I'm joined by One Nation leader, Senator Pauline Hanson, and 3AW's Neil Mitchell. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Now, Pauline, to see those scenes last night and then to hear Arndt's comments, should she be stripped of her honour?
Let's just make it quite clear. I made a very strong comment on my Facebook page. It was a horrendous act of what he did to his children. It was a tragedy, and I'm very deeply sorry for everyone, family and friends involved, and it was treacherous of what he did to his former wife and his children. But Bettina Arndt should not be stripped of her Order of Australia. She is clearly stating what she thinks and what a police officer said. This is why I have pushed for the family law inquiry to get behind what is happening, all this. You know, this has been for a week. We've been in the news nearly every day about this horrific tragedy. But we don't hear much about it when a woman has murdered her children by driving a car into a tree. She threw out a suicide note. Or the woman that actually doused her husband with fuel and then set him alight and said she was possibly driven to it. A lot of people are driven to this, to do these acts for one reason or another. Hopefully the family law inquiry will get to the bottom of it. But don't bastardise all men out there, all women for that matter, because these things happen. Let's get to the bottom of it, why it is happening, and hopefully find the answers so it never happens again.
But I mean, looking at this though, I mean, Bettina Arndt, she has form in regards to this. I mean, in the past, we've seen her publicly defend a convicted paedophile, and this was a school teacher, a 58-year-old man who groomed and sexually abused a 15-year-old student. And in that instance, Arndt talked about these vulnerable male teachers and said, and I'm going to quote here, "Girls should not exploit their seductive powers to ruin the lives of men." I mean, is this the type of person we want to be celebrating, Neil?
No, I don't think so. And I've interviewed about that, and she said, "Oh, I could have chosen my words better." Well, there are many times she could choose her words better, and this is one of them. The awards are supposed to be unifying. I'm lucky enough to have an AO myself, and I can tell you it's a really, really special thing. Over the years, about 45 people have... It's not clear how you actually lose them. I think you hand them back. I hope Bettina hands it back because rather than unifying, it is destructive. It is dividing people, and I think she said a very silly thing. Very least she should apologise, but she hasn't even shown a sign of doing that. But I agree with Pauline. You know, if AVOs, in this sense, if AVOs worked, Hannah and the kids wouldn't be dead. The system is not working, protecting men or women. There are many more female victims, there's no question about that. Men are the main perpetrators, but the system is not working.
Well, look, it's a very emotive issue, this one, so let us know what you think on our Facebook page. There's something else I want to talk to you both about this morning because there's concerning evidence that Chinese students are beating the coronavirus travel ban, arriving in Australia via a third country, and that universities here are helping them. The Australian reports that thousands of students are now using the loophole to study here. And Pauline, Western Sydney University is offering $1,500 to each student to cover the extra airfare and accommodation to actually get them here. What are your thoughts?
Well, I hope the government is on top of this, and I will be chasing it up today to see what they're actually doing about it. We know that the universities in Australia, apart from the rural and regional areas, are not for the Australian students. It's all for foreign students, and they rely on that money coming into the country. And then they use it as backdoor to get their permanent residency to Australia, and then they send their own kids back out here to get the free education. It's disgraceful what is happening. The coronavirus is on the rise. They haven't found a vaccine for it. And for the universities to do this, they have more regard for the dollar they get through their universities and foreign students and what they care about the Australian people. But it's up to the Australian government to ensure that this is stopped. And they're coming through the countries, Malaysia is one of them, that they're travelling through there to come here to Australia. So if any Australian or an Australian kid catches coronavirus from any of these foreign students that come here, will the university be held liable?
Yeah, it certainly doesn't seem like they're putting our safety first. And Neil, I mean, there's now talk that a pandemic is likely. Do you think we're ready for that?
No, the Victorian Chief Health Officer said a pandemic is likely, if not inevitable. The federal authorities don't seem to agree. We've got to put a lot of money into the hospitals. I don't know where that's coming from. The reality is, if a serious pandemic hits, the health system can't cope, and they say they're starting to build it up. And I'm worried about this. How low can you bow to China? I mean, there's the 1,500 kids coming in, there's the money being handed over. And here in Victoria, Caulfield Grammar, one of the prestigious private schools, was going to name its swimming pool after Mac Horton, who's an old boy and a great Australian champion who stood against drugs. But I know he upset the Chinese, so we won't do that. We don't want to risk the Chinese dollar. These people are business colleagues of ours, not our friends. It's an atrocious country, the way it runs its human rights and deals with people. And we've got to recognise that as we go through this kowtowing now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Pauline, you would agree, a disgraceful decision there by Caulfield Grammar not to name their pool after Mac Horton?
I totally agree. And Neil's completely right. We've allowed China to have too much influence over us, and they've opened up the floodgates and buying up our land, our agriculture, our dairy farms, and Australians are fed up with it. But the government is reluctant to do it because they've allowed our industries and manufacturing to slide. They're looking for the migration to prop up our economy, and anything that China wants to buy up. And they're doing it around the world, every country. We will be beholden to China unless we actually pull our bloody heads in and start to do things differently.
All right. Well, Pauline and Neil, thank you so much for joining us this morning and your thoughts.
Just one other thing, just quickly before you go, why is Carl sulking?
Sulking?
Has everybody been sending him up too much? He seems very quiet.
No, it's Monday morning.
Quiet.
It's Monday morning and Ali's had a crack. Yes, she's had like 3 or 4 cracks, and I'm feeling a bit vulnerable.
I said one thing
like
that I wasn't.
Poor Carl.
Poor Carl, goodness me.
I
said one thing, I said I didn't think he'd be very good at basketball. Clearly, I was a little too close to the truth.
Mitchell@3rw.com.au. Carl is not a dill, please. Well, maybe he is.
Wait, hang on. Who's calling him a dill?
Yeah, I heard that.
That just
Maybe I'll do
escalated.
that.
I heard that. That's the nicest thing I've been called this morning. Thank you, Neil. Thanks, Pauline.
Thanks, Pauline.
We do. We've got to leave our vulnerable men alone, don't we?
Yeah.
Cut you a bit of slack. There you go. Still